a great example now of exactly how some of these values might be coming to life. I'm going to shift now to Kfir Gavrieli, who's joining us here in LA. Kfir is the CEO and co-founder of Tieks, TIEKS.com, if you want to go check it out. It's a really super cool fashion brand. You guys make ballet flats and amongst other things. And when we started tracking this story, we were kind of flabbergasted by how you had mobilized your community around a lot of the exact same virtues and values that Therese was talking about around self-reliance, thrift, and helpfulness. So let's start by framing a little bit about what Tieks is, how it started, and also how you had social impact baked into this brand from the beginning, right, Kfir, with the work that you were doing around microloans and Kiva.org?
Yeah, that's correct. And a lot of what Therese just talked about really resonated with me and made sense with a lot of what we've done in the lead up to this pandemic, and really what we've done during this coronavirus as an extension of what we've been doing historically, and embodiment, I think, of what our values as a company are. But briefly, we're a ballet flat designer. We've been for over 10 years designing and selling a brand of foldable, versatile ballet flats, something that it's hard to believe, but in the footwear industry didn't ever really exist in the form that we created. We have a foldable, durable, comfortable, stylish ballet flat. And for any men listening, a ballet flat isn't necessarily for ballet dancing. It's the name of a footwear category. I always need to clarify that. It was started over 10 years ago. We were one of the first brands in the world to be vertically integrated and native to online. So one of the very early direct-to-consumer brands.
Yeah.
And from very early on, we have been involved with Kiva, which you mentioned, which is a micro-lending website. I went to business school with the co-founder of Kiva, Jessica Jackley. And really early on, I recognized that the mission of Kiva is well aligned with our ethos as a brand, because we're about empowering women. One way we do it is through versatile shoes that allow women to have more flexibility in their lives. But we try to incorporate that ethos into every aspect of what we do as a company. Kiva aligned well with that. And over the years, we've become the largest individual lender on Kiva in the world through the Gavrieli Foundation, which is our foundation. And it struck me as Therese was speaking that this increased emphasis on values like self-reliance, working hard, protecting the family, things that today in the US are becoming more prevalent, in some of these developing countries have always been prominent because they live in a different reality from us. And so our focus through the microloan program, and that's loans ranging in size from as low as $25 to over $1,000, has been to support these values that we know women all over the world hold dear. And so instead of what was prominent at the time, giving a shoe for every shoe that somebody buys, we thought we could have more impact than that by enabling women to become self-sufficient, empowering them through credit in societies where they don't have ready access to capital. And in some of these countries, with as little as $25, a woman could buy a coffee machine. She can launch a coffee shop, and she can uplift herself, her family, and by extension, her community out of poverty. So that's something we've been focused on for a long time. And the goal is obviously, instead of giving a woman a pair of shoes, empowering her to be able to buy her own pair of shoes, and more importantly, other things that she and her family need and value even more than that. Yeah. So that's always been our focus, and the mask campaign it kind of dovetails off of that effort to always identify what the most pressing need people have is, and then see how we as a company can participate in helping people achieve what they would want to do themselves otherwise.
Amazing. Thank you for sharing that, Kfir. So it's kind of ingrained into your DNA. And then, so tell us about this moment. Maybe, was it like 6 weeks ago, 7 weeks ago, where somebody came to you and said, "Hey, there's a shortage of masks," and tell us about that process that led to Sew Together.
Yeah, I remember. I'm sure, like many other people, a lot of WhatsApp groups, and one of them, my good friend named Miller, sent me a message from his sister, who's a resident at the largest hospital in Los Angeles, LAC-USC, it's, I think, one of the largest public hospitals in the country, and she was freaking out because she recognized that they were running out of PPE, and it wasn't going to last more than a couple weeks. This was, during the beginning phase of doctors cycling through, 10 to 20 times as many masks as they normally do in a day. And that's what initially caused us to spring into action. My first thought was, okay, how can we source some of this from overseas? But as many people have heard, that's been quite challenging to cross international borders with PPE. Every country's kind of hunkering down and saying we need whatever excess capacity exists in our country and not letting it be exported. So we resorted then to try to sew masks in our own headquarters. So we bought a fleet of sewing machines and we started sewing. And the need for cotton masks is on the one hand to help prolong the life of medical grade masks, in that if you wear it in conjunction with a N95 mask, it prolongs the life of that mask. They're cotton masks that have pockets for filters that can be added. And then for people who are less likely to be infected, hospitals are asking for these kinds of masks so that they could be used by patients coming in who don't necessarily have COVID. And that helps reserve more of the N95 supply for others. So the need was apparent, and we tried sewing masks. We were making a few hundred a day, and then it hit us that if we could somehow engage our community, our fans and our customers to sew masks with us, we could really scale up the impact we're having. And so we launched Operation Sew Together, and the response has just been phenomenal. We managed to overnight, literally, erect essentially a distributed factory with thousands of workers, something we couldn't have done in our own headquarters. And yeah, there are just thousands of photos capturing this very real impact. We've now reached over 620,000 masks sewn and distributed mostly locally to hospitals and facilities that the women who are sewing identify in their local communities. About 10% of the masks come to our headquarters, and we distribute from there to hospitals that have reached out that are in pressing need. A lot are going to the most hard-hit areas, Louisiana, New York, Washington, etc. And this really has been, for me as the CEO of the company, perhaps the most rewarding campaign we've ever done.
Yeah, it's incredible what you kind of unlocked in terms of the generosity of the community. And, there's so many great things to unpack about this. I just want to take a second to explain to people. So instead of saying to the community, hey, if you buy a pair of Tieks, we will donate a mask, you said, if you sew a mask, we were going to give you Tieks gift cards, right? And it's $50 for 25 masks. Is that right?
Yeah. And $100 for 50 masks.
$100 for 50 masks. So you were basically incentivizing them through the generosity of Tieks to say, if you do this for other people, we will give something to you. But what happened next kind of surprised you guys as well, right? It kind of went way beyond even that incentive, and people have been making many more masks than the gift cards, and kind of been taking matters into their own hands as well, right?
Yeah, we were, I think, tapping into a latent demand by people in our community to do something, to contribute. I think we saw earlier the value of duty that's arisen recently. That was very noticeable. People wanted to help. We as a brand wanted to help. This was the best idea we had for how we could really do something together. For us as a brand, we haven't discounted in a really long time, and so I think a lot of people appreciate the opportunity for a gift card. We thought that was the least we can do, and we also thought it was the most we could actually do to activate people and kind of get them over the hump. A lot of women had doubts. I don't know, I haven't sewn in a long time. Where would I get a paper pattern? How do I identify a hospital that's in need? And so we kind of nudged them on a few of those points, but really we were just tapping into what everyone had in their own hearts and wanted to contribute. And what you identified is the best reflection of that. Women have continued sewing way beyond whatever the requirement for a gift card is, because they deliver these masks to hospital. They see how grateful the doctors and nurses are, and they can't just go back home and sit on the couch and watch TV. They feel an obligation and also an empowerment to help, and that's kind of the best thing I felt like we could do as a brand.
You said something beautiful when we were preparing for this conversation. You said, all we did is we let people see their own power. And I really love that. You've unlocked a sense of purpose and meaning in people to want to help in a very simple, self-reliant, thrifty, helpful way,
Yeah.
What have been some of the highlights of this journey so far in terms of the feedback you've been getting from your community?
The best thing for me is to see how proud the sewers are of what they're doing, and the thought that we helped push them over the edge to sew. One of the best stories I heard was from you see here a young lady sewing. One of the best stories has been generations coming together in a safe, socially distanced way, setting up production lines of masks, women writing in saying how this has brought them closer to their mother, their grandmother, their aunt, their kids. And it's, in my view, such a great way to teach important values in a time where people can have very real impact. I'd say that, and then hearing from hospitals, doctors and nurses, and the gratitude they have for this, which is, I think, a validation of how important and helpful these masks are.
We have a principle that we talk about at Conspiracy of Love called "Be the helper, not the hero," and it's a really important point for brands as you're navigating this stuff. Don't make yourself the hero of whatever action you're taking. Instead, let your consumers, in this case, be the heroes, and all you have to do is create a platform that's in line with your values, that's authentic to you, and then create this opportunity for them to really step in. So. I think it's a remarkable journey. I also want to point out that Tieks is doing something really powerful for Mother's Day as well. I highly recommend you go check this out. This is another example of how you're helping the community express the love for their own mothers. Tell us a little bit about this as well.
Yeah, we were, obviously Mother's Day is a big holiday for us. We're a women's shoe company. And we were thinking, again, kind of like with the masks, what is most needed now? With the masks, we could have done shoes for frontline workers or something to that effect, but we thought the most important thing in that moment was to help protect people. And we saw the value on safety, et cetera. And so we wanted to participate somewhere along that dimension. Now for Mother's Day, the thinking is what is most needed for moms who are in quarantine, who are isolated from their loved ones. The most important thing you could send a mom now is a love note, is beyond any particular product. And of course, we always hope that people will think to send Tieks, but instead of saying, hey, buy your mom Tieks this year, we said the most important thing you could do is send her a story about how much you love her. Bring a smile to her face, connect with her, maybe even tears of happiness. And so we asked people to start their stories or include in their stories a line about, I will never forget when, ... and share an anecdote with your mom that'll kind of bring her back to a happier time, and that captures the unique love we have for moms, which really is a love unlike any other. And so we're just, as a brand, tapping into that, and it's been very rewarding to have thousands of women participate and trust our brand to deliver these kinds of messages to moms. And like you just showed, we've been featuring some of the most powerful stories on our website, and on Mother's Day we plan on running that to let anyone who wants read through some of these very powerful stories.
Yeah, I've been reading some of them. I gotta say, bring Kleenex if you're gonna do it. It's so powerful. Really amazing work,
Agreed.
Kfir. I think you had 14,000 women who've now submitted notes to their mom and climbing. So it's just remarkable.